The Valori Imperial Military Academy. Morning assembly. 40 cadets sit in disciplined silence. On the blackboard, a single equation written in white chalk. F equals ma.
Now, who can tell me why this matters?
No one answers. No hand rises. The silence stretches. It would take her cadets 6 years to answer that question. Their empire would not survive their answer. 6 years earlier, the Valori Empire signed a cultural exchange treaty with Earth. They requested educational instructors for their junior officers. Earth's response was unexpected. A retired physics teacher from Cleveland, Ohio, Mrs. Carolyn Pierce. The Valori were a caste-bound society, their hierarchy absolute, their order built on obedience. High Command considered the exchange a waste of resources. They paid no attention to her course outline, why things move. They did not understand what a 67-year-old woman with a piece of chalk could do. The treaty was signed with little fanfare. The Valori wanted technology. Earth offered educational instructors. A request went to Earth's Education Exchange Bureau. A clerk flagged a name, Carolyn Pierce, retired physics teacher, Cleveland, Ohio. 41 years of service. No family objections. Weeks later, a modest educational shuttle carried Mrs. Pierce and her daughter Anna toward the Valori homeworld. They docked at the Imperial Military Academy at dawn. The structure dwarfed the shuttle, its brutalist walls swallowing the light.
So this is Earth's contribution. A grandmother with a piece of chalk. High Command must have lost its mind.
He wasn't friendly.
We're not here to be liked, Anna. We're here to give them something they didn't know they needed.
That evening, in an empty classroom, Carolyn pinned a handwritten outline to the wall. The title read, "Why Things Move."
Might as well start where I always have.
You think they'll get it?
Not yet, but they will.
The first class. Carolyn drew a simple diagram on the board. A circle, an arrow, a question mark. 40 Valori cadets watched in absolute silence, their training demanding that all answers be known in advance. None of them had ever been asked why.
What keeps a satellite in orbit?
The manual states, gravitational attraction and angular momentum result in orbital stability.
And why does that combination produce stability?
Because the equations are balanced.
Why do the equations balance?
A soft rustle in the back row. Lyra, the quietest cadet, stared at the diagram as if it had spoken. Her hand trembled slightly.
You want us to doubt the manuals?
Number. Understand why they work.
Commander Draven watched from the observation window. He logged his assessment. The human posed no threat. He did not hear the first crack in the armor of obedience. Within months, the questioning migrated outside the classroom. In the mess hall, cadets debated routines that had never been challenged.
Why do we sit in assigned seats when half the hall is empty?
Instructor, why must we form single file at dawn when the corridor holds 5 men across? Commander Draven heard the reports. He summoned the human teacher to his office that afternoon.
Your teaching is causing disruption. Cadets are questioning protocols that have stood for 1,000 years.
Mom is in there with Draven. I can feel the tension through the wall.
Is asking why a disruption, Commander. I'd have thought it was the beginning of understanding.
It undermines discipline. Orders are not to be questioned. They are to be followed.
Then help me understand, Commander. Why does discipline require silence?
Draven had no answer. He dismissed her with a wave, but the damage had been done. Anna logged the incident quietly. 2 years. Her first cadets became officers. Their reports to High Command did not salute. They began with a single word. Why? Lieutenant Lyra, assigned to logistics, wrote a memo on supply chain inefficiencies. The caste-based distribution rules doubled transit times. She asked why. Commander Varek questioned tactical doctrines unchanged for 300 years. His superior had no explanation. Anna Pierce, working from a small terminal, began compiling what she called the question index. Every unanswered why logged, cross-referenced.
The index is growing faster than High Command can ignore. They're starting to see the pattern, Mom.
Admiral Draven attempted to ban excessive questioning. The bureaucratic review board cited the exchange treaty and denied his request.
You've turned my officers into philosophers. They question everything, even my orders.
In the classroom, Mrs. Pierce drew a new diagram, a rigid frame collapsing under its own weight. Below it, she wrote, "Any system that cannot explain itself is fragile."
Physics doesn't care about tradition. Neither should you.
The cadets understood. They began to look at their empire as a system of assumptions, and they had the tools to test them. 4 years. A dreadnought collided with an asteroid field. No one had asked if the approach vector was safe. Commander Varick's investigation cited not negligence, but the absence of a single question. Why? High Command reprimanded him. 27 officers signed a public letter of support. The military fractured. The disaster was not an accident. It was a systemic failure to ask the most basic question. Desperate, High Command summoned the human teacher. Mrs. Pierce read the summons, then handed a datapad to her daughter.
Anna, you've helped me grade papers for years. Now, help them grade their own assumptions.
Anna walked into the High Command chamber alone. She did not open a manual. She opened the question index.
You asked why they question. The index has 412 reasons. Shall I read them?
The chamber fell silent. The admirals stared at the datapad. They realized it was a weapon. Mrs. Pierce stayed in her classroom, teaching a lesson on resonance. The Empire vibrated at its fundamental frequency. Admiral Draven stared at the leaked logistics report. 17 questions, all starting with why. The public had them now, in factories and mines. Lower caste workers passed the questions hand to hand. For the first time, they whispered the word aloud. Why are we paid less for the same work? Why are our children barred from that school? Why in the Senate chamber? Senator Vallis rose. His voice echoed.
The lower castes are questioning the foundations of our civilization. This disease of doubt must be cauterized.
Anna Pierce gave a calm interview that evening. She did not look like a revolutionary.
My mother teaches physics. She also teaches that every answer can be understood. That's all the castes are doing, understanding. I wrote the report because it was true. The caste rules double our supply time. That is a military problem, not a political opinion.
They've learned to ask. Now, the hardest part, listening to the answers they don't want.
The Empire braced. The question had become a flood, and no wall was high enough to hold it back anymore. 5 years. The state media tried to brand the human teacher. They called her the question witch. They thought it would weaken her.
41 years of teaching adolescents. No scandals, no secret allegiances. She has never been fined for anything. How can I fight a ghost?
The Earth Embassy was asked to comment. Their reply was 2 words: no statement. The silence reverberated through the Empire.
She's just a teacher. Every evening, she asked me what I learned that day. Every single evening.
In the Capitol Square, people gathered. Their signs held 2 words: ask why. They didn't yell, they just stood. In her classroom, Mrs. Pierce drew a new diagram on the board. She never once mentioned the headlines. She just asked more questions.
She has broken no rule. The treaty protects her, and the entire empire is watching. We have no move.
The smear campaign backfired. Each insult made more people ask why. The question which became the symbol they needed. The old guard stared at each other across the Senate floor. They knew now, you cannot arrest a question. The Senate summoned her to answer for the chaos. Mrs. Pierce walked into the chamber alone, a piece of chalk in her pocket.
Why does the Valori Empire have a caste system?
Silence. The tiers of senators stared at each other. No one could produce a justification.
It is our sacred tradition. The ancestors decreed it.
Why did the ancestors decree it? Why is tradition a sufficient reason? Why is any system above question?
Vallis tried again. Tradition, stability, order. Each answer collapsed under the weight of the next question.
I do not know. I do not know why the caste system exists.
The broadcast streamed live to every screen in the Empire. In a classroom, Anna and a few cadets watched in silence.
She just asked why. And a 1,000-year empire forgot how to answer.
The Senate chamber dissolved into chaotic whispers. The caste system had just been publicly exposed as baseless. In the Senate, resignations began. 3, 12, 47. By nightfall, half the seats were empty. Outside, the Capitol filled with silent crowds. They held no weapons, only signs. The signs said 2 words. Admiral Draven authorized emergency protocols. He ordered the military to disperse the crowd.
You will clear the square. That is a direct order.
We were taught to ask why. Admiral, why should we fire on our own people? The soldiers stood still. Not one raised a weapon. Not one moved.
Then it is over. Everything I served, undone by a teacher.
Draven placed his insignia on the desk. He walked out. High Command dissolved itself an hour later. The old empire had fallen. No blood, no battle. Only a question. In a quiet academy hallway, Anna Pierce looked out at the city lights. Tomorrow, the real work would begin. Within days, a caretaker committee formed. Varric, Lyra, and other officers, alongside lower caste leaders. Anna, we need someone who knows how to ask the right questions. Will you advise this committee?
They're asking me to help rebuild an empire. Mom would say, just ask why.
Anna agreed, not as a leader, but as a facilitator. She sat at the table and began asking the first question.
We have never been allowed to speak across castes. Now we must.
The Provisional Council issued an emergency decree. All caste-based laws were suspended, pending permanent reform.
The caste marks will fade, but the questions must remain.
You've helped me grade papers for years, Anna. Now help them grade their society.
They don't need a ruler. They need a teacher.
The old system was officially on hold. The Empire waited, holding its breath for what would come next. The Constitutional Convention opened with shouts and fury. Anna Pierce stood between the factions, her hands raised.
Why should one group's voice be louder than another's?
A high caste delegate stepped forward. His caste marks seemed to burn on his skin. He confessed he could not defend the accident of his birth. Then he broke down. Silence fell. No more arguments, only understanding. The final vote was unanimous. The caste system was abolished forever.
The marks will fade, but the memory of why we cast them aside must remain.
The new Parliament chamber was built. The Speaker's chair sat empty, waiting for a voice.
They will choose their speaker when they're ready. My job is to keep asking why.
The Constitution was signed. The old caste system was gone, but the question of leadership hung in the air, unanswered. The new Parliament met, but no speaker could be elected. Old caste loyalties still held a secret grip.
We need a speaker now, not a faction champion. Someone who will ask the right questions.
I have no right to lead. The system I defended is gone. I am only a warning now.
But the factions would not yield. Each name proposed reopened wounds. Anna spent the day saying no, not me.
I can see what they need, but if I say yes, I break the rule. We lead by asking, not by wanting.
The only person they all respect is Anna, but she refuses to be named.
She still thinks she's just a teaching assistant. We need to show her this is the same work.
The session ended in failure. The Empire's rebirth threatened to stall on its first decision.
Mom would say, if no one else can ask the first question, maybe it's time you took the lead. But I am not sure.
The whisper grew louder in the corridors. Anna Pierce, the teacher's daughter, the only answer. The next session, Varric rose. The chamber hushed. He proposed a name no one had dared speak. She taught us to ask why. She can teach us to lead. I nominate Anna Pierce as speaker. Shocked silence. Every face turned to Anna Pierce. Her hand rose instinctively. a gesture of refusal.
They're offering me power, but I am not Valori. This isn't my world to lead. I am human. You must lead yourselves. I cannot accept.
She left the chamber swiftly, the door closing behind her with a hollow echo.
That's what Mom would have said. Lead by asking, not by taking. Why does it still feel wrong?
Inside, the parliament sat paralyzed. The only candidate had refused. The silence was heavier than before.
I am just a teaching assistant. They need a Valori leader. I should stay in the background.
But the chamber knew the deadlock had not broken. It had only found its name and lost it. Anna found her mother in their quiet quarters that evening. She could barely speak.
I am not Valori. They need one of their own. I can't be speaker.
I've never taught a single Valori student how to be human. Why would you need to be Valori to teach them?
She always answers a question with a question. It's infuriating. And it works. What if I fail them?
Then you ask why, and you try again. That's the only lesson I ever gave. All your life, you've helped me ask questions. Now help them find their own answers.
Anna sat with that. The weight shifted. It felt less like a crown and more like a piece of chalk.
It's not about taking power. It's about serving them. Just like Mom.
She nodded slowly. Not yes, not yet, but the door was open. Anna requested a meeting near dawn. Varek, Lyra, and 2 faction leaders came to the small chamber.
I have one question. Why do you want me? Why not a Valori leader from among you?
Because you are the only one we trust. You have no faction to favor, no ambition to satisfy. Only questions.
We spent 1,000 years obeying rulers. Now we need a servant who will help us think.
The faction leaders nodded. One, an old high-caste reformer. The other a former factory worker. For the first time, they agreed on anything.
If I accept, I will not rule. I will only ask questions. My duty will be to serve this parliament, not lead it. They need me to be the questioner. That I can do. Then it is decided. Will you speak to the full parliament? I haven't said yes. But they already hear the question I am about to ask.
By morning, word had spread. Every faction pledged support for Anna Pierce. She had not yet spoken the word, yes, but the path was now clear. Anna entered the parliament chamber that afternoon. The members rose, uncertain what she would say.
I have one condition. If I accept, you must all choose together. A single acclamation. No dissent.
She paused, letting the silence work. The chamber felt the weight of what she was asking.
I am not Valori. I am a teacher's daughter. My only power is to ask why. I will not lead you. I will serve you. I will ask questions you must answer together.
The chamber understood. This was not a conquest of power. It was a surrender to service. One by one, they stood. Then all of them. A standing ovation. Varek moved the vote for the next session. Seconded by Lyra. Unanimous consent.
So this is what it means to be a teacher. You give them questions, and they give you a future.
Tomorrow, they would decide. But tonight, the Empire exhaled. Dawn of the vote. The Parliament chamber filled with every member. No seat empty. A single question. Do you accept Anna Pierce as speaker? A single shout of yes went up. Every voice in the hall. Anna Pierce walked to the dais. She placed her hand on the new constitution.
I swear to serve this parliament, to ask always the question that needs asking, and to never presume I have the final answer.
She sat in the speaker's chair. It was no longer empty.
Why? That is all we ever needed. So keep asking. Always question your own decisions.
In the gallery, Carolyn Pierce watched. Her hands rested on her lap. No chalk, just stillness. A single tear rolled down her cheek. She did not wipe it away. Outside, the capital erupted not in riot, but in cheers. The sound of a new era. The Empire had not been conquered. It had been taught, and the lesson was complete. The same docking bay where they had arrived 6 years earlier. The same shuttle stood waiting.
I thought I'd have more time to prepare for this.
You've been preparing your whole life, Anna. You simply never realized it.
Carolyn reached into her cardigan pocket and withdrew a piece of white chalk. She pressed it firmly into Anna's hand.
Keep asking. That's all you ever need to do.
The same chalk she used on the first day. Now it's mine.
They embraced tightly. No more words. The shuttle's engines hummed a low, rising note. The shuttle lifted smoothly into the pale velour sky. Anna stood at the edge of the platform, a small figure against the immensity.
Go home, Mom. I'll keep the question alive.
The shuttle became a speck, then nothing. Anna Pierce, Speaker of the Velour Parliament, stood alone on the dock. She had a piece of chalk in her hand and a galaxy to teach. But the story of Carolyn Pierce was only one thread. Earth had been weaving this pattern for 200 years. Retired teachers, sent as cultural exchange to 23 alien empires. 6 of those empires no longer exist. 3 have constitutional democracies now. None of the teachers think of it as extraordinary. It is simply work, the galaxy's most underestimated weapon. A 67-year-old woman with a piece of chalk. Carolyn Pierce was not the first. She was simply the latest in a quiet, relentless line. She returned to Cleveland. She watered her orchids. She considered it Tuesday. Earth never sent soldiers. It sent teachers, and asked them to do what they had always done. No one ever suspected that the most dangerous weapon in the galaxy was a question, and the empires that survived learned to ask why before it was too late. The Velour were not the first to be taught. They will not be the last. It's Cleveland, Ohio. A modest house with a greenhouse out back. The orchids were blooming. Carolyn Pierce was home. The same cardigan she'd worn in the Velour classroom, now dusted with potting soil. A small holo newsfeed flickered on the potting bench. The anchor's voice was distant, but the image was clear. Speaker Pierce addressing the Parliament.
Look at her, teaching them to ask why.
The report ran through the year's reforms. 18 deadlocked votes broken by a single Socratic question. Carolyn smiled faintly. She reached for the remote and turned the holo off.
They don't need me watching. They're doing it themselves.
She picked up the watering can and moved to a phalaenopsis with a drooping leaf. Just a little more water. Just a little more time. She did not need galaxies to conquer. This was enough. Outside, the Ohio autumn wind stirred the leaves. Inside, an old teacher watered her orchids, and the galaxy turned slowly on. The greenhouse was silent. On the potting bench, a single piece of chalk lay beside a blooming orchid. The chalk was worn smooth from decades of blackboards. Alien chalkboards too, but still white. The orchid bloomed in shades of pale purple and cream, a hybrid she'd bred herself. They seemed an unlikely pair. The chalk, plain and earthy. The orchid, fragile and rare. Yet it was this very chalk that had written the first question on a Velour blackboard. She never saw what she did as extraordinary. She just did the job she'd always done, teaching children how to think. It was the simplest, quietest thing in the galaxy, but in a universe built on obedience, it had been the most revolutionary force. And so the chalk rested beside the orchid, and somewhere in the galaxy, a young speaker asked her first question.